Guys, you're back here with me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, and we're finishing up chapter 4 of this book, Witchcraft by Emily Carding, and so far it's been excellent, a book that I can't really put down while I'm building my indoor permanent altar to the Fae out of this beautiful dollhouse that's handmade out of wood and natural ingredients, for lack of a better word. So we've talked about how to consecrate it and ask the Fae to be part of this. That was our first video. And how to set up the shrine. And then the second video we talked about things and positive offerings, both indoor and outdoor. Then in the last video we talked about things that aren't so good of offerings, okay? And that was the third video. This will be the fourth and last video of the chapter, and it's going to be about timing and suggested activities, okay? So when we're talking about timing, it is advisable to maintain a regular routine of offerings, even if it just is monthly or a few times a year, or even once a year, as well as when you feel the call to do so. The most important times to leave offerings for Faery is at the ancient Celtic festivals of Beltane, May 1st in the Northern Hemisphere, and October 31st in the Southern Hemisphere, okay? Midsummer, June 21st in the Northern Hemisphere, and December 22nd in the Southern. And Samhain, October 31st in the Northern Hemisphere, and May 1st in the Southern Hemisphere. It is at these times that the veil between worlds is tangibly at its thinnest. Tangible is something you can feel. You can feel at this time it's at its thinnest, the veil. If you work within another tradition that has dates particularly associated with fairies or spirits, then you should be sure to give offerings at those times. The phases of the moon have a magic that is above any detail of human culture. So you may wish to leave offerings for the fairy beings at full moons and new moons particularly, which is so funny because I did that new moon fairy offering about 2 weeks ago and I saw the orbs floating above it in the darkest of moons with my candlelight offering that I said I was calling out to the Fae and doing this special video for you guys. It was awesome capture. So, and then I was saying I'm definitely always going to do a new moon one. And this is so funny to read this because my intuition was guiding me in the right place. And I think that that's the spirit of the Fae talking to me and telling me how I can know intuitively what to do with or without this book, okay? So listen to your intuition, guys. Because it's all going to start to, like, make sense over time. I totally licked my hand and then fixed my hair, I'm sorry. But it's just going to start to, like, apply and make sense over time, and you'll just know. And that's what I mean. You'll just start to know and feel. Remember, honor is not only in your outward acts toward the Fae, but is also carried within you at all times. Respect the everyday as much as the obviously magical. For there's potential magic in every act and thought. I completely believe that. All deeds, both within and without, send out ripples of consequence. A wise man once said to me, "You must wear your marigolds," your rubber gloves worn for housework, "at the same time as your crown," meaning that you must always keep grounded, not take yourself too seriously, and see the wonder in the mundane. I've never forgotten that, and it has served me well. Wear your crown and your marigolds. That's beautiful. Always keep your promises and don't ever make a promise that you can't keep, especially to the fairies. This goes for everyday life as well. One thing they'll know. Remember. For another. Once you are on a path, you cannot choose to step off it to suit yourself. Learn to select your words carefully and act within awareness. And that's when we talked about, like, dedicating this and consecrating it and everything. Dedicating it to the fairy realm to have it as a portal to pass through. If you make any promises at that time, you gotta make sure that, you know, it's something you can do, something you're willing to do, and when you make that promise, you make it to your soul as well. a lot of us will just get upset at ourselves if we don't keep promises. But that's not a way to do it. Don't make the promise if you can't keep it. When you get yourself to a point where you feel you can, maybe just do a rededication or a special promise dedication, you know. Make that a ritual in itself, you know. I'm upping my ante. I'm giving you guys more. I have more free time. Where am I going to put it, you know? So, do not lie. This is a hard one for me. As a young person, I lied all the time and I couldn't figure out why. And it was just, I had so much creativity and so many things going on in my head and I was so bored, you know. And I spent a lot of time alone and without people. So if I just said stories out loud to myself, it wasn't lying. But as soon as you put someone there and you put truth to it, instead of saying, this is a creation, what do you think of this story? Man, I don't know. It's bad, though. And I don't know why I did it or why people do it. But I'm just telling you that I can relate to lying and not maybe knowing why. And I accept that that is just a part of who I was growing up. But now I need to say, like, even small lies, I do consciously feel bad for. Like, ones that you have to tell to your children for whatever reason because they're not old enough, or, you know, things like, I'm a bad liar now because I have to sit there and think, like, is this lie worth it? And then if anybody was trying to detect me, I'm sure they'd know straight away, like, why did it take her so long to answer that? Why did she look like this, like, 8 times? Like, I was trying to, like, weigh the options in my head. And my filter, I don't have a poker face, you know? Okay, so don't lie, don't lie, don't lie. Fairies may have a reputation for being mischievous and even immoral, but they do not lie. If they have been called deceptive, it's because of their skills of glamour and illusion, but through the use of these, they teach us much about ourselves as we are willing to listen, and we can start to see through the layers of illusion to the core's light of truth. Okay, so when we can walk the path in truth and honor. Sorry, I'm going to start over. When we can walk the path with truth and honor, we gain insight and knowledge not only of the fairy, but of our true selves. That is when we are ready to embrace magic. Alright, now we're to a section at the last bit of the chapter talking about suggested activities. And the first of that is create. Perform the main exercise for this section, building the fairy shrine, which I talked about in the first video. And be sure to maintain it, keeping it clean and tidy, lighting a candle, burning some incense, or placing the occasional new object on your shrine are always ways of strengthening your bond with the fairy and your allies. Your shrine will now be your point of focus for any daily practice you have developed. Even if that's waking up in the morning and kissing the door, or waking up in the morning and kind of like dusting it or rearranging the pieces. Paying attention to it, touching it, telling this object that you love it puts all this good vibe and good energy. If you wake up and look at it and go, man, that's cluttered, it sucks, I wish it wasn't like that, it's doing the opposite. So it would be better to just wake up and take 30 minutes and like try and tidy it, you know, rather than you putting any amount of negative energy, even with that evil eye, like, oh, I wish it wasn't dirty, I wish it wasn't dirty, I hate the way that looks. And we all do it when we look at the sink full of dishes, or when we look at the pile of laundry, or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, just get up and act and change the energy, you know, change it into a positive. So create. And then the next one is practice. Have a good think about what you can give best. Remember, whether that be the gift of song, the gift of dance, which are free and always with you, and not a physical, tangible thing, but instead something that comes so purely from your heart. And the fairies can tell that. And that is more of a gift to them than probably tangible things. So yes, I think that they're superficial and they want the best of the best, but these heartfelt gifts, these tears, these bodily fluids, these things, that hold them in high regard, you know. Okay, so what can you give best? Am I an artist? Could I paint something for them? Could I go forge stones for them out of the caves that are near me? Could I, you know, what could I do for them? Could I sculpt something out of clay in honor of them? What could I do? So get creative, you know, and practice and create. So experiment with, this is really important too. Get into regular rhythm of leaving offerings. Experiment with offerings during different cycles of the moon, and make notes of any fluctuations of energy or response. So have a little tiny dollar journal and paint the front really nice and pretty. Not another book on your shelf, not another planner, just like a little thin dollar journal. And you guys with your book of shadows and all the stuff that you're doing, you're like, grimoires, they're amazing. So get that creativity, make a little book for your fae, write down your offerings. I do video offerings a lot of the time, so I don't really need to do that, but I should. And then, because you're going to note next to that, like, 2 days later the white peacock showed up, or 3 days later in my car there was, I can't say it, there was a piece of a bird laying there, or there was a special rock that I stepped on and it was amazing. I don't know. Take it as these notes into what's going on and what's changing for you. They'll stick out. I mean, and a lot of times, from my experience, they stick out like sore thumbs. You're like, that is obviously the fae. Like, you know, in the day or the next day after your offerings, when do these things show up? Note that. Make 3 and... If these things always show up the next day after you make an offering 3 days in a row. Does something show up every next day? If it does, then you can take this information and apply it, and you can take this research and use it practically for yourself. You know what I mean? And then when you ask for something specifically, make note of that. How quick did it take to show up? Did it show up at all? How did I ask the fae for it? What did I do in preparation? Was there a ritual for it? Because as you know with me, and I've mentioned this before, I've done about 2.5 months of offerings, and that's about 10, because I do one every Monday. I've not yet asked for anything, but I've had these wicked things show up that I really, really deeply feel are fairies or from the fae. Now, when I go to ask for something, I would really like to know how long it takes, because you can literally start to depend on these things. I'm not kidding. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, but if 19 times out of 20 you ask for something and you get it, it's a pretty good gamble. Like, the chances are pretty low that you don't, you know, it's 5% chance that you're gonna fail. That's not bad. Okay, and then the last thing is respect. By now you should have identified at least one potential outdoor sacred space that is important to you. When you visit this space, try to remember to take a bag with you to clear any rubbish there might be in the area, and always act respectfully. Consider ways in which you might actively care for your local environment, including local groups and volunteering. So that closes chapter 4 of this book, Witchcraft by Emily Carding. And the next chapter is called Magic, and it talks about the 7 directions of sacred space, the 7 directions and sacred space: east, south, west, north, above, below, within. And then it talks about creating a sacred space, so we'll definitely do a video on that next. Purifying the space, an exercise, and all these exercises that you do throughout the book are like building your stepping stones to having like the perfect setup, it seems. So I'm excited about that. It gives you some incantations, casting a circle, tools, how to, wands and staffs, and how different woods like alder, maple, ash, beech, birch, blackthorn, the list goes on, apply to fairy magic. So this chapter we're going to get into is just going to be super exciting. Any questions you guys have on fairies, let me know today, because we're kind of focusing on that. I think my next video will probably be, because we're in between chapters, I just got this brought home to me, 2 bottles of this. It was quite expensive, about $10 for 1 bottle, and 1 bottle filled up 2 lamps, and I have 4 lamps, so I don't have any backup fluid. But this, because you don't want to use kerosene, you want to use these. So, as you can see, I've got a little, my lamps, they're soaking. Right now that wick, it takes an hour once you pour the bottom. The wick is soaking up all the oil. And, yeah, I've got my lamps going. So, thanks for joining me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, and, really getting into these, like, fairy shrines and offerings and what can we do? How can they help us? So, come back and we'll talk more about it.